Well, hello. If you're looking for a spoilery discussion of On the Other Side by Carrie Fletcher, then you are definitely in the right place. If you have not read the book, please go no further and go read the book and then come back to this video, or if you want, you can click here and watch my spoiler-free book review and book accessory suggestion. Give that a click and a watch and a like if you liked it. Spoiler alert, we are going into the spoiler part of this discussion. So because for this book specifically, I have a lot more positive things to say than I do negative, we're going to start with the negative and then we're going to go into the positive and end on a positive note. So the negative, the punctuation as far as like things like the one tick quotation marks being the quotations for speaking, but then also how like Mr. Leafy, like Mr. is not punctuated, like it doesn't have a period after MR. Those little things did irk me, they did, but I was able to get over myself enough to keep reading and enjoy the story for what it was and for what it is. But definitely I would have preferred a more traditional writing style, but it's her book and she gets to do what she wants. I totally respect her choices and don't think that that made it a bad book, but it is something I noticed. It is something that kind of took me out of the story because it's something I couldn't help but notice. So if you're somebody who's a stickler for traditional writing styles as far as grammar and punctuation, it's probably going to irk you a little bit as well. If you guys felt me on that, great. If not, then great too, because I'm happy that you didn't have that kind of tickling the back of your OCD like it did with me. But honestly, that is pretty much the only negative thing I have to say about the writing specifically, or the book in general. So now into the positives. Characters, I give a solid 5 out of 5 because these characters were wonderful, and I noticed that a couple people harped on the whole name concept. I honestly don't care. I really love it when characters have really nice catchy names, and I didn't have a problem with any of the names in this book. Like, yeah, it can come off a little campy if you have themed like names like Carrie Fletcher did for this book, but I don't think it came off campy in this book. I think that it flowed really naturally and that it was really nice. I thought it was a nice compliment to the characters. Also, I love drag queens, and drag queen names are all play on words, and so I kind of just, it's normal for me. It's just really normalized in my life at this point. So I didn't have a problem with that. Yeah, so like going into the characters, Evie Snow and Vincent Winters, I ship it so hard. I loved them so much as a couple, how they met, how they progressed. Certainly for me, it moved a little bit faster than I would imagine that it would, but at the same time, like, I also get the whirlwind of like finding love, and I haven't found that perfect love, like somebody that I clicked with that instantaneously in a romantic sense. So who knows, maybe I would make out with somebody or take them to my bed on a second date. As far as I know, I am just not that kind of person, so it's not something I judge her on, but it was also something I couldn't really connect with her on. But that's more my own personal thing than it has anything to do with the characters themselves. But in general, the way that they met in the subway station, I was at work when I was reading this book. I was in my break room and I was just like, oh, that's so sweet. I was just making these little squeak noises that with the date, with the burgers and the oh my god, no. And the fact that he was making a really big point of like, we're just becoming friends, so let's start there, and yeah, that's all this has to be. I love it when you can have open communication enough, even on a first date, to take the pressure and the expectation out of a date, because I really hate dating. And mostly I hate dating because of the expectation. But I thought the whole scene with the candies, with the orange candies, was just so sweet. The fact that, you know, he was like, I prefer the orange ones, and how he accepted it as a perfectly valid form of tribute to his beautiful playing. Oh, it's just so romantic. I know that I probably won't meet my significant other in a romantic way this way. I would love to meet somebody this spontaneously and romantically. I just don't know that my anxiety would ever let it happen. Like, I would probably go the second time to give him candy and it would say, sweetie, I like the orange ones best, and I would just be like, oh my god, he like is talking to me like directly, so I think that he thinks that I like him, and I think that he thinks that this is gonna be a thing. I'm gonna go ahead and go now, bye. So as much as I would love to have a romantic introduction to my future significant other, it's probably going to be a little bit more structured, but I like living vicariously through books like this and through characters like Evie Snow and Vincent Winters, where I like to believe that I would let that happen and that I would go with it and encourage it, but who knows? I haven't met that person, and I haven't gotten to that point in my life. I certainly have very, very many romantic interactions where I wish my anxiety would have let me enjoy it more, but I am me, so that just got me in the feels because, man, I wish not only somebody would be that romantic to me, I also wish that I would let that romantic interaction happen and bloom into something if it was going to. Evie, Snow's mother. And I have known actually many mothers like this mother. Not necessarily, I don't think I've ever met a mother who would pressure their child or like basically demand their child marry the person that they want them to marry. I have encountered mothers, honestly, make me very thankful that though I only had my mother for 15 years, she was the most incredible, most wonderful, not just human, but also mother and best friend. She was my best friend, and I had a best friend for a mother for 15 years, and we had a deep, wonderful, loving, unconditional love and relationship, and it was beautiful. And especially when I meet mothers like Eleanor Snow, I would much rather only have my mother, who is so wonderful and nurturing and encouraging and accepting, for 15 years and lose her forever, than have a mother like Eleanor Snow for the rest of my adult life. Even though her mother was a terrible, terrible tyrant and a horrible person and a total bitch, that she was gonna miss her mother, even though she was gone, even though it made her life a lot easier and simpler to have her gone. Vincent being so respectful of Evie's choice to take the arranged marriage to be able to take care of her little brother, and knowing that if she abandoned her little brother and he either had to live alive for the rest of his life, or if he came out and then was abandoned by his family or ostracized by his family. I really love that he acknowledged that if they ran away together and tried to live a happy life together, it'd probably fall apart because Evie would just be riddled with guilt and responsibility, lingering responsibility to her brother. And Evie's just that kind of person. She's the older sister. She has that instinct. I love that he knew that even if he could convince her to run away with him, that they would not have probably the flourishing relationship they both had in their head. And then how at the very end, when Vincent finds the courage to approach Evie's old home and Jim answers the door, he just hugs him and embraces him. For the people that you love, it's really important to also love everyone in their past for making them the person that you are able to love, if that makes sense. You know, even Evie Snow's awful mother, you know, in a way you have to be thankful in the sense that without her awful mother, she probably would not have turned out the way that she did, and she turned out to be a very, very wonderful, lovely, strong human being. Jim just had that down to a T. It was just bred into him. He was just born to love. Unfortunately, it's almost like Jim and Evie were meant for each other in every aspect. They're both just so full of compassion and love and caring and protection, or protectiveness for the people that they love. And I bet if they got married and went through their entire life together and she didn't want to have children or never wanted to have sex with him, I bet that he would have just accepted it and been absolutely happy to just be married to her. I think that's beautiful. I was so excited when Isla came out to Evie as pansexual, because I'm pansexual, in case you didn't know that. Ta-da! To have representation in literature that isn't classified as LGBTQI+ literature is really cool, and I would love to see more of that. But I loved the fact that one of our main characters was bisexual, but it wasn't like a huge thing about his personality. It wasn't something that was brought up more than once. And how, yeah, it's part of his life and part of his history is that he was with a man, but now he loves Evie and he will love her forever, and yay. And then we of course had Eddie, the gay little brother. It was interesting to have like every aspect of like a coming out story where Vincent, who is bisexual, and his mother just accepts him for the way that he is and that it was no big deal, which is a lot of the situation that I've been in, slash a lot of my friends have been in, where it's kind of like you come out and that's just who you are and your parents are willing to love you no matter what. Even if they think it's wrong, they'll still love you. And then there is Eddie's side of the coin, where he's gay, and if he ever came out to his parents, he would be not only disowned, but his parents would probably like lock him away or something, or do something very terrible to him. I was very terrified for him when he was coming out to his parents, but I'm really glad Evie was there, and I'm really glad that it turned out the way that it did. And then there was Isla. We don't get to know much about Isla's home life as being a pansexual or being out, but she seems out enough to enjoy her life as far as dating a woman, but being employed by a person or a company that doesn't accept you the way that you are, and that if they found out you could lose your job, that is such a real aspect to the LGBTQI+ community's struggle. I think specifically these days it's more about being transgendered and having that prejudice against you in the workplace, or by your boss, or if they ever found out you were transgender. It can be life-threatening, because if you lose your job, you lose your livelihood, and if you lose your livelihood, then what do you do after that? So many aspects of LGBTQI+ were brought up in this book without it being the main focus or a huge point of every character or the story, and I really, really appreciated that. And I loved, of course, the last scene and the last words of this book, and I definitely cried at the very end. One thing though is that because Jim is my favorite character in this book, I really want to know what his heaven is going to be like. I asked Carrie in her Q&A video in the comment section about this, but I don't know if I'm getting a response, and I guess if I don't, then maybe we can talk about it and make our own science behind it. But I would imagine that when Jim dies and he goes to his personal heaven, Evie would be part of that personal heaven. But I also think that Jim had so much love for Evie and for Vincent for making Evie happy in the way that she was, in the way he couldn't, that he genuinely loves Vincent too, not in a romantic way, and you know what, hey, I ship that too. I would like it if maybe they lived in a house in heaven together, like the three of them, and then eventually her kids and her grandkids and things like that. That would be kind of a really cool ending for all of them, I think, especially because then Evie gets to have all the people she's ever loved, Jim gets to be with the only woman he's ever loved, and Vincent and Evie get to be together, and Jim, I think, would be totally cool being an eternal third wheel. If I'm being 100% honest with you guys and myself, at the beginning of the summer I had a moment where I got to basically like wish in a well kind of thing, and I definitely had a wish in my head that was, I kind of wish for a summer romance. It's been a while since I've been swept off my feet. I totally wished for that at the beginning of the summer, and I have definitely got it just through fiction. And I was not specific about my wish, and if Disney Channel has taught me anything, it's to always be very, very specific about your wishes. But I'm not unhappy with the way that my wish was answered, because between this book and A Court of Mist and Fury and the very sweet and adorable romance in Peculiar Children, I am more than satisfied with the summer romance that I have gotten out of the summer of 2016. And definitely this has been the apex or the crux of that summer romance. I got to feel all the feels that I hoped I would from a summer romance, even if I'm just living vicariously through characters in a book. So thanks, Carrie, for my summer romance. Thank you guys so much for watching and for being involved in my tiny community. If you guys want to talk to me about this book in the comments, if you have any responses to anything that I say, please, please, please do not be shy. I look forward to talking to you guys in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this discussion at all, please give it a like. Would really appreciate it, and I will definitely see you guys later.